Dear friends, good evening and welcome to our Erev Shavuot service. Tonight, as we begin our spring festival celebrating the giving of Torah at Sinai, we rejoice as this year's confirmands affirm Torah's place in their lives. While they and we all had hoped to mark the milestone in our sanctuary together on our bima, circumstances don't quite yet make that advisable. But tonight's service may be, if possible, even more meaningful as an occasion to celebrate, as God willing we emerge from such a difficult 15 months. For tonight, we can look ahead with the hope that these students represent and inspire in us all. We invite you to follow along in the special machzor they wrote. It's either on your seats or you can find it on our worship page at emmanuelnyc.org. We continue there on page 2 as we welcome the confirmation class of 2021-5781.
They are gifts and they are blessings, they are history and song. We are hope and we are healing, we are learning to be strong. L'dor vador nagid God lecha, L'dor vador we protect this chain, from generation to generation. L'dor vador these lips will praise your name. These lips will praise your name.
Hag Sameah and welcome to our confirmation service. Today, May 16th, 2021, the 6th of Sivan, 5781, we celebrate the festival of Shavuot. The festival of Shavuot marks the spring harvest in the land of Israel, and it also commemorates the anniversary of the giving of the Torah by God to our ancestors at Mount Sinai. Therefore, Shavuot is celebrated by going to synagogue and reading the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments state that you should love God and that you have to focus on loving yourself and others around you too. The Ten Commandments are the foundation of everyday life in Judaism, and confirmation is a way for young adults to become part of that foundation. Also, confirmation class offers an opportunity for us to consider and think about what it means to be part of the Jewish community. These conversations help us to strengthen the core values of what Judaism means to us today. Today, as we confirm our faith and belief in Judaism, we commit to incorporating the values of Judaism in our lives moving forward.
To a land that I will show you. Lech lecha to a place you do not know. Lechi lach on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing, Lechi lach, and I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your name. Lechi lach, to the place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi lach. be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi la.
Please rise for the Baruch Hu on page 3.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated.
You direct the play of creation and light the skies with the sun and moon and stars. Every day and always you continue to create this world anew. The light from the sun illuminates our days, but the light of your Torah shines at all times. You give us your Torah to teach us how to live. Blessed are you, eternal God, who guides us with love.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam va'ed.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך. ושיננתם לבניך ודיברתם בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות להם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא 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 תהילות עושה פלא. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא 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 תהילות עושה פלא. מלכותך רבניך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים. זה לי, ענו ואמרו. מלכותך רבניך, בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים. זה לי, ענו ואמרו. באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא 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 תהילות עושה פלא. אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. לעולם ועד. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש, נורא 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 תהילות עושה פלא, עושה פלא, עושה פלא.
The question, what does Judaism mean to you, is an extremely broad one. Although there are infinite answers to the question, Judaism, to me, is being part of a community. The religious community at Temple Emanu-El has been a big part of my life since the day I was born. Rabbi Posner visited me shortly after birth, and I always have nostalgic memories of dropping off my older sister at religious school when I was too young to go myself. We all know that our lives are constantly changing. Even though the world feels like it's on fire sometimes, especially because of COVID, my Jewish community is something that has never drifted away from me. Being a part of the Temple community has been a great constant for me my entire life. This community helps me reach for my goals, has given me opportunities to connect with people, and made me feel safe and secure. During my trip to Israel with the Temple, I made friends with many other people who I've kept in touch with to this day. It was wonderful to be in a country where Jewish traditions are celebrated with warmth and enthusiasm. The stories of the Torah and the actions of biblical characters that I heard in religious school taught me great moral lessons. Take Moses, for example, who led the Jewish people to safety during a perilous time. Moses' actions show us that one person's bravery and courage can help many people. It also reinforces the notion of community because of their shared experiences, challenges, and identity as a people in Egypt. Being in the community helps greatly when facing loss. A little over a year ago, my family and I lost my grandfather and my great-aunt Betty, the matriarch of the Buller family. Losing them was especially tough during COVID because we weren't able to express our grief collectively with our beloved family members and friends in person. But we did find a way to get together through Zoom, and being part of the religious school community was a great comfort to me as well. When I was in 5th grade, I had an incident on a bus where a man was shouting anti-Semitic remarks out of a window and jokingly threatening my little brother with the same rhetoric. The man couldn't tell we were Jews. Although I was shaken by the incident, I was aware of the hate towards Jews I told my parents, and that was it. The situation was over. I still remember how one day our phone rang, and it was Rabbi Davidson who was calling for me. He told me to explain what happened, and he comforted me. Even though I didn't have a close relationship with the rabbi at the time, he reminded me that the things that the man said were wrong, and showed me that he was there to support me. Sometimes all it takes is a willingness to listen. After my bar mitzvah, life became more demanding for me. I've chosen to keep participating in activities like the 7th grade mitzvah corps, where kids my age worked on doing mitzvahs around New York City. It was great meeting kids my age because it expanded my own Jewish community beyond those friends I have from my school. Or my most recent work as a member of the A-team in religious school, where I hope to teach and inspire young members of the religious school with the same lessons and values that I learned. The A-team is a great community in and of itself, where I learn from and where I'm motivated by peers to be involved and exercise the Jewish value, dugma ashit, which is being a role model. Now that I'm being confirmed, I hope to continue through my Jewish life with the same values that I've learned through my journey in Hebrew school. I hope that the stories I've learned, lessons I've learned, and good people that I've met continue to shape me for the rest of my life. Regardless of the challenges and hardships that you all face, you take time out of your day to visit the temple, possibly because, like me, you find the same incomparable value as I do in being part of this fascinating and strong Jewish community that we all have fostered here at Temple Emanu-El. Thank you.
Adonai. Ananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananana, Ufiagi Tehilatecha. Ananana, Adonai. Ananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananana, Ufiagi Tehilatecha. Ananana, Adonai. Ananana, Sfatai Tiftach. Ananana, Ufiagi Tehilatecha.
Einu, Elohei Avotenu Behimoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, El Hagadol, Hagidor Behanora, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Begonei Hakol, Bezocher Chasde Avot Behimahot, Umevi Geula Livneinehem, Man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach Magen. Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham, Bezrat Sarah.
Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, mechayei hakol atah rav lehoshia, mehokel hayim behesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim verofei holim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato vishenei afar. Michamocha ba'ogevuro, umido melach, melech memit, umehaye, umatmiya Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lecha hayot hakol, baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hakol.
Please be seated.
It is during the hardest times that we have the most to be thankful for. During these unprecedented months, we have to be appreciative of the doctors and nurses who are risking their lives for the betterment of the community. We have to recognize the grocery store workers who still work in the midst of the worst of the pandemic so we could all have food on our tables. We also have to thank ourselves for making it to this point despite the ups and the downs, no matter how hard it might have been. We should appreciate how resilient we have all been during this time. Constantly, we are finding new and creative resolutions that never would have been thought possible prior to the pandemic. We also have to be grateful for our ability to find even the smallest bit of energy when it feels like we have no energy left. The ability to find light when it seems like there is no light left. We have to acknowledge the strength of each and every person during this time where strength is the hardest to muster. Because what is strength? Strength is the belief that things are going to get better, and we need to keep hold of that belief, because if we didn't believe that, then we would have given up. We always need some sense of faith, whether it might come from God or not. We need it to keep going. Next, we should thank those closest to us for sticking by our sides and keeping us company during a time when company was most needed. Lastly, we should thank Temple Emanu-El for pivoting so quickly and giving us an opportunity to participate in and enjoy programs and services, even though we could not physically be in person for them.
Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country, that it may always be a stronghold of peace and its advocate among the nations. May contentment reign within its borders, health and happiness within its homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among the inhabitants of all lands, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Blessed is the eternal God, the source of peace.
With those words of peace, of seeking peace, still echoing in our ears, we now turn within to find the peace in our own hearts. We pray silently.
עושה שלום במרומם, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומם, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן. Please sing with us. Ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la 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 ya la la ya la la ya la la. עושה שלום במרומם, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו
As
There's
our,
none like you. Oh, never mind.
as our confirmands have shown us so far in all of their beautiful words, they are stepping into a world deeply in need of healing. They are keenly aware of the challenges they have faced and will continue to face. And I hope you all join me in seeking a world healed for these young people as they enter into adulthood. But this healing begins with each of us. A world is not healed until all of its inhabitants are healed. So I ask you, if there is someone in your heart, a loved one, a friend, even yourself, who is in need of healing, please share that name aloud, either in our sanctuary or wherever you are watching from. The one who hears all prayers will certainly heed your call. May each soul, may each body, may each person in need of healing receive it quickly and completely. We continue with our Misha Berach, our prayer for healing.
May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
We continue with the service for the reading of Torah on page 9.
There is none like you, Eternal One, among the gods that are worshipped. There are no deeds like yours. Your sovereignty is everlasting. You reign through all generations. God rules. God will reign forever and ever. Eternal God, give strength to your people. Eternal God, bless your people with peace.
El harachamim, heitiva virtzonecha et Zion, tivnecha mot Yerushalayim, tivnecha mot Yerushalayim, Venisa Adon Olamim, Ki mitzion tetze Torah, Ki mitzion tetze Torah, Udavar Adonai Yerushalayim, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'ikdusha.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Lecha Adonai Hagedula v'Hagevura v'Tiferet v'Hanetzach v'Hahod Ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz Ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz Lecha Adonai הממלכה ומי נעשה לכל לראש.
This evening we are certainly celebrating the confirmands, but we know that without the support of their families, they would not have made it here today. So at this time, we invite the families of the confirmands to join their children or siblings on the screen for the blessing before the reading of Torah, for the Aliyah. Take it away.
Baruch et Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Le'olam.
Baruch atah Adonai. Baruch atah Adonai Hambarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher b'nu mikol ha'amim. V'natan et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. וידבר אלוהים את כל הדברים האלה לאמור. אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך אשר הוצאתיך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. לא יהיה לך אלוהים אחרים על פניי. לא תעשה לך פסל וכל תמונה אשר בשמיים ממעל ואשר בארץ מתחת ואשר במים מתחת לארץ לא תשתחווה להם ולא תעבדם כי אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך על כנו פוקד עוון אבות על בנים 34 לשונאי ועושה חסד אלפים להווי ולשמרי מצוותיי לא תישא את שם אדוני אלוהיך לשווא כי לא ינקה אדוני את אשר יישא את שמו לשווא.
זכור את יום השבת לקודשו, 6 ימים תעבוד, ועשית כל מלאכתך, Yom Hashvi Shabbat Adonai Elohecha Lo Ta'aseh Kol Malacha Ulicha Ulitecha Avdahava Amachta Uvehemtecha Vegercha Asher Bisharecha Ki Shisha Yamim Asa Adonai et Hashemayim vet haaretz et hayam vet kol asher bam vayanach vayom hashvi al kein beirach Adonai et yom hashabbat v'yekadishehu.
Kaved et aviha v'et imeha leman yarihun yameha al ha'adamah asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach lo tirtzach lo tin'ach lo tignov lo ta'aner v'reaha ed shaker lo tachmod be'reaha lo tachmod eshet reaha ve'abdo ve'amato V'sharo v'hamaro v'hol asher lereyecha.
God spoke all these words, saying, I am Adonai, your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods besides me. You shall not make for yourself a sculptured image or any likeness of what is in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, Adonai, your God, am an impassioned God, visiting the guilt of the parents upon the children, upon the third and upon the fourth generations of those who reject me, but showing kindness to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and keep my commandments. You shall not swear falsely by the name of Adonai your God, for Adonai will not clear one who swears falsely by the name.
Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of Adonai your God. You shall not do any work. You, your son or your daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth and sea, and all that is in them. And God rested on the seventh day. Therefore Adonai blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor your father and your mother, that you may long endure the land of Adonai your God is assigning to you. You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his male or female slave, or his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's.
I now invite all of the confirmands and their families to return to the screen for the blessing after the reading of Torah.
Maya, you want to?
Go for it.
Baruch
atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam lata v'tokeinu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. It is our tradition at this time during our service of confirmation that we pass the Torah scroll symbolically from one class to the next. And so, Jacob Buller represents the class of 5,781, Ben Lillis, the class of 5,782.
Our tradition teaches us at Sinai, Moses received the Torah and handed it down to Joshua, who handed it down to the elders, who handed it down to the prophets, who in turn handed it down to the men of the Great Assembly. And so Torah has been passed on through the generations to us. Today, we confirm its place in our lives and proudly pass this tradition onto you who represent next year's confirmation class. Embrace it as we have and study it as we have.
We who represent the confirmation class of the year 5782 are proud to accept from the class of 5781 this tradition and the heritage it represents. We will embrace it as you have and study it as you have. And next year at this time, we will confirm Torah's place in our lives, just as today you have confirmed its place in yours.
Please rise.
It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. It is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it, and all of its supporters are happy. Shalom, 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 shalom. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazit ki ba v'tomcheha ve'usha. Eitz Chaim hi lamachazit ki ba v'tomcheha ve'usha. Shalom, 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 shalom.
Dear friends, allow me to introduce you now to the confirmation class of 5781, for they are people truly worth knowing. Jacob Buller, Max Coven, Morgan Elephant, Miles Pilchick, Emma Schlosser, and Tali Smith. And now, dear confirmands, I would share with you a very unusual tale that, if we didn't know better, we might imagine had been spun for this very unusual moment in human history. In fact, though, it comes from the 18th century parables of Rabbi Nachman of Breslov. Once there was a king with 6 sons and 1 daughter. The daughter was very precious to him, and he loved her very much. But one day he became angry with her. Though it was over an insignificant matter, his temper got the better of him, and he declared, "Away with you." She went to her room, and in the morning had vanished. No one knew where. Her father was despondent, heartbroken, and furious at himself for his harsh words. He dispatched his servants to search for her everywhere, but to no avail. There was a man in the kingdom who learned of the princess's disappearance and the king's distress. Asking for an audience with the king, he said, "If you but give me a horse, I will look for her until I find her. I give you my word." The king agreed, and the man rode off in search of the lost princess. He searched a very long time, many years in fields, forests, and deserts. In one desert, he followed a path through the sands that led him to a beautiful castle guarded by many soldiers. Though afraid of the soldiers, he approached the castle. To his surprise, they let him enter, and there he searched from chamber to chamber. Reaching the throne room, he saw the king seated upon the throne, and beside him his queen. And who was his queen? None other than his own king's lost daughter. She rose from her throne and approached the man. "Who are you?" she asked. "I am a man from the land of your birth," he answered. "I promised your father I would find you and bring you home. Will you come with me?" She responded, "You cannot take me home unless you first go to a secluded place and pray a year for my release. And on the last day of that year, you must neither eat nor sleep." The man obeyed, and at the end of his year of prayer on that last day, he neither ate nor slept. And then he went off to rescue the lost princess. But on his way, he saw a tree with beautiful apples, and he ate one and promptly fell asleep for a very long time. Years passed. The princess had given up all hope of rescue. One day she was out riding in the royal carriage and saw the man asleep beneath the apple tree. She descended from the carriage and tried to wake him, but could not. She started to weep. Then she took the scarf off of her head and wrote a message on it with her tears and laid it down next to the man before returning to her carriage and riding away. When the man finally awoke, he realized his failure, but then noticed the scarf lying beside him. He took it and lifted it up against the sunlight, and seeing the letters, he read her note. "I am no longer in the castle where you found me years ago," it said, "but in a different castle built of pearls on a golden mountaintop. Search for me there, and you will find me." So off he rode, and once again he searched for many years. One day he came upon a giant. "Who are you?" demanded the giant. The man told him his story, that he was looking for a golden mountain and a pearl castle. The giant said, "At my height I can see from one end of the world to the next. No such mountain, no such castle exist." "But they must," insisted the man. The giant said, "I will summon all the animals to prove it to you." So he summoned all the animals from small to large and asked them, and they all answered that they had seen neither the castle nor the mountain. Still the man would not give up hope. The giant said, "I will summon all the birds to prove it to you." He summoned all the birds and asked them. They too had seen neither the castle nor the mountain. But the man cried out, "No, they must exist." The giant said, "I will summon all the winds to prove it to you." He summoned all the winds, and the winds came, but not one of them knew of the mountain or the castle. And the man at last gave up and began to weep. But just then another wind arrived. "Why are you delayed in coming?" the giant demanded. And the wind answered, "I was delayed because I had to carry a king's daughter to a golden mountain with a pearl castle." The man was overjoyed in hearing this. And the giant said to him, "Since it is such a long time that you have been searching for her, and you have expended so much effort, I will order this wind to carry you there." The wind carried the man to the golden mountain and the pearl castle. But at the castle's gate, soldiers were stationed who would not let him enter. The man took up residence in a nearby town, and there he lived a long time, waiting for the moment when he could at last rescue the princess. How he rescued her, we do not know, only that in the end, he did. And that is how the story ends. It is an unusual tale, to be sure, and a bit bewildering, perhaps, until you realize that for Nachman of Bratslav, every element of his stories is a metaphor for something else. The princess is a metaphor for redemption, the healing of our broken world. I selected the tale for this night because it is really about holding on to our faith in moments of uncertainty. We have all lived through a year of tremendous dislocation and upheaval in our world and in our own personal lives. Our country has come face to face with its own history of systemic racial injustice, and as such tragedies continue to unfold, we may wonder if we will ever heal what divides us. As we worship tonight, Israel is in the midst of a war, not just with its neighbors, but one which has seen citizens violently attacking one another, the latest chapter in a tragic cycle of death and destruction. And it has been a year in which each of us has been torn from the routines that brought order and stability to our lives, separated us from friends and family, who many of us are only now beginning to see. And while, thank God, things are improving here in the United States, around the world, COVID continues to exact a devastating human toll. In such moments of uncertainty, we have to believe that things will get better. They will. How exactly? When exactly? As in Nachman's tale, that part of the story is yet to be written. But this we know: it will never be written if we give up hope. The festival of Shavuot, to which this confirmation service is linked, celebrates the giving of Torah at Sinai. That moment when our people stood at the foot of the mountain, entered into a collective covenant with God, and made the commitment to weave Torah's precious teachings into the fabric of their being. The teachings that we are all created in God's image, of infinite worth, absolutely precious, that each of us has a role, a responsibility to do our part to finish the tale, to bring the redemption, to heal the broken places of God's creation, and to leave it more gentle and more fair for our presence in it. Tonight, you, our confirmands, stand at the mountain, and in confirming Judaism's place in your lives, you accept that same challenge to find ways to incorporate the lessons of Torah into the way you live and act. Your words this evening demonstrated that you have already begun. Collectively and individually, you are people of great energy and talent and wonderful role models for us all. We are extraordinarily proud of you, and you should be too. We love you for who you are and for whoever you are yet to be. And in that love and pride, we would ask God's blessing upon you.
Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and keep you.
Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chuneka.
May the light of God's face shine upon you, and may God be gracious to you.
Isa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom, shalom.
May God turn his countenance toward you and grant you peace. Please rise.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הרצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Throughout my life, I have always been able to participate in Tikkun Olam, acts of kindness, either at Emanu-El or in my neighborhood. However, the unique circumstances that we are in have impacted my ability to perform them right now. In this time, it has become more difficult to do good things for the community due to safety precautions or because many places have closed down. In such a closed-off world, it has been hard to make a difference beyond the people close by. I have been raised knowing that it is very important for me to help my community, so I have been looking for different ways that I can practice Tikkun Olam in my daily life. Over the course of this year, I have realized that Tikkun Olam can mean acts of kindness to repair the world, regardless of the size of the actions. It can be small, simple acts of kindness, like helping someone with homework or holding the door open for someone. It may seem like we have a long way to go to improve the world, but little acts of tikkun may be more beneficial than we know.
ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Even in moments of celebration, and perhaps it is especially in moments of celebration, we are aware that there are those who once sat beside us but no longer do. Still, we know they live on. They live on in the values that were precious to them as we see those values passed down and embraced by subsequent generations. They live on in the acts of goodness they performed that forever changed this world. And they live on in our own cherished memories of them. If there are those among you who have suffered a recent loss, I'd invite you to rise now. If there are those marking a yahrzeit, the anniversary of a loved one's passing, we remember with you and we invite you to rise. Now, as one congregational community, we stand together and we recite the Kaddish prayer on page 13. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon uv'yomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, b'agala uv'izman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevorach leolam u'almei almayah, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudusha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to every grieving heart. Amen. Please be seated.
Ose shalom b'roma uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom b'roma uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Ose shalom b'roma uyase shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen.
Hag Sameach, once again, everyone. And before we conclude, a few important thank yous. First, to our confirmands, on behalf of this congregation, its leadership, its clergy, all your teachers. How beautifully you led us with your words chanted and spoken. How wonderfully you inspire us. We know it is no small thing to dedicate the time you have to continuing your formal Jewish learning into high school, especially when most of your peers do not. And we thank you for making the commitment that your synagogue and your Judaism be a priority in your extremely busy lives. We know that commitment to lifelong Jewish learning does not happen by accident. It is nurtured. And so I want to thank the parents of our confirmands and their grandparents and their older siblings too. You modeled a love of Jewish life that this wonderful group embraced. You should know that this moment would not have come to pass without you. And some additional thank yous are also in order. On our confirmands' behalf and on my own, I want to acknowledge our Associate Director of Lifelong Learning and Director of Teen Programming, Rachel Brumberg, our Director of Lifelong Learning, Saul Kaiserman, of course, my colleagues, Rabbis Ehrlich, Zapaden, and Kahn, and Cantor Glasman, and the representative from next year's confirmation class, Ben Lillis. We look forward to his participation in this service once again in 1 year's time. We hope you'll join us tomorrow as our celebration of Shavuot continues with morning worship at 10:30, which will include our Yizkor memorial service. Now, as we conclude, please welcome once again the confirmation class of 5,781.
Let us affirm our faith in Torah, our people's legacy of learning and faith.
There are no words more challenging than you shall be holy.
No command more basic than you shall love.
There is no insight so fundamental as in the beginning God, no word so life-enhancing as you shall rest.
No cries more compelling than let my people go. No consolation more comforting than I am with you in your distress.
There is no vision more hopeful than they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and no summons more demanding than justice, justice shall you pursue.
These words have outlived monuments and empires. We want them to live through us until the end of time.
Owe it to our ancestors to keep Torah alive. They struggled and suffered to preserve our way of life. May you do this to your most precious.
We owe it to our children to keep Torah alive. For why should they be spiritual paupers when the riches of this heritage can be theirs?
We owe it to the world to keep Torah alive. This is a message which the world needs to hear.
Owe it to God to continue as a people, to share God's dream, to bear witness to God's sovereignty,
And to live the words of the Torah. Hag Sameach.
Hag Sameach.
Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, mazel tov, simen tov, yehelanu, 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 ulecho Israel, yehelanu, yehelanu, ulecho Israel, yehelanu, yehelanu, ulecho Israel. Yehelanu, Yehelanu, ulechol Yisrael.
Chag Sameach, everyone.